Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, liberty-loving patriots. Welcome to the Lucid Libertarian with Lorianne show. Please be sure to tune in Sunday nights from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern, to discuss current events, news, and political opinion with Lucid Libertarian flair. Be prepared, folks. We often go into an optional extended third hour. This show advocates for liberty, freedom, our Constitution, Bill of Rights, and limited government, while speaking against corporate and government corruption, tyranny, and the globalist Great Reset agenda that undermines our precious American sovereignty. Discussions here are unscripted and free-flowing, so sometimes conversations wander off in unpredictable directions. Would you like to call in and share your thoughts and be part of the conversation? The number is 563-999-3698. Again, that is 563-999-3698. Press number 1 and you'll be added to the queue. Please also like and follow my Lucid Libertarian with Lorianne page on Facebook. You can help me battle their freedom-loathing censorship by visiting my page regularly, along with reacting, commenting, and sharing my posts. Thank you so much for listening, but please sit tight and don't go anywhere. We'll be back in a few minutes to kick off the show.
Imagine waking up in a trunk. What is grooming? What if I told you we had a 40% increase of human and sex trafficking in our country due to COVID lockdowns? We already had high numbers to begin with. One's Purpose is an amazing organization pounding the pavement every day, helping these survivors get help. Unfortunately, they do not have the funding they need for a safe house. In the state of Oregon, we have 0 safe houses for these survivors who have endured the most heinous of crimes. The time is now to get involved. The time is now to help stop human trafficking. Please go to onespurpose.com to get involved. If you need help and if you know someone who needs to get help, please contact 541-221-3448. Make a donation, make a difference.
Sure, it's Friday night, but that is no reason not to tune in to NWCR Radio at 9 p.m. Eastern Time with Robert the Infidel Garding. Being around since 2007, we patriots have watched as the left and many on the right have done nothing to stop what is going on to destroy our great nation. Ideas abound with our society, but most are horrible at best. But there are good ideas out there if you know where to look. Join us every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern for a dose of reality from behind the silver microphone of freedom with the voice of reason in this unreasonable world. That's NWCR Radio at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday evenings, where you can call in at 646-478-5284 and give your solutions to what is ailing this country.
So in a 8-1 decision, the Supreme Court denied a stay that would have protected a state's Second Amendment sanctuary law. This law bars the state and its agents from enforcing federal laws, which in fact violate the Second Amendment. But despite that 8-1 order by the Supreme Court, the state is not giving up and they are still fighting back. So let's talk about what is going on. But real quick before we jump into this video, I want to thank the sponsor of this channel, which is Blackout Coffee. Blackout Coffee makes amazing coffee and they are huge Second Amendment supporters. They have dedicated roasts for organizations like SBC and GOA. So if you want to support the two-way cause and you want to get great coffee, check out Blackout Coffee using the links down below. And if you use the code ARMSCHOLAR, you can get 10% off of your order. So like I said in the intro, in this video, we're going to be talking about an 8-1 order that was issued by the Supreme Court and how it's impacting a state's Second Amendment sanctuary law. The recent Supreme Court order denied a stay which would have protected Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act, but the state is still fighting back despite that 8-1 order by the Supreme Court. In 2021, Missouri passed a law, the Second Amendment Preservation Act. The law set the state's interpretation of the Second Amendment and set restrictions on the enforcement of inconsistent federal laws. The law prohibits Missouri's officers, agents, and government officials from helping federal agents who are attempting to enforce inconsistent federal laws. Now, in response to the state of Missouri passing this law, the United States government decided, of course, to sue Missouri. In this case, the U.S. government sued Missouri under the theory that the law is unconstitutional because the statute is premised on an incorrect interpretation of the Second Amendment. Essentially, the U.S. government argues that Missouri's super pro-2A law and its interpretation of the Second Amendment, which is very pro-2A, is unconstitutional, and that the government's more limited interpretation of the Second Amendment is correct instead. The government argues that the summary language in the statute made the rest of the statutory language that was put in place invalid. The District Court on review agreed ultimately with the U.S. government and struck down this law in its entirety. The District Court issued an injunction preventing the state of Missouri and its agents from enforcing this law. Now, what is the law in question? Well, Missouri passed the Second Amendment Preservation Act through HB 85. The act declares that federal supremacy does not apply to federal laws that restrict or prohibit the manufacture, ownership, and use of firearms or firearms accessories or ammunition within the state of Missouri because such laws exceed the scope of federal government's authority. Any public officer, state, or local employee who tries to enforce a federal firearms law is open to civil suit and civil penalties of $50,000 per employee, which is then used to enforce that type of law. Essentially, this law allows any person, any resident in Missouri to sue a state agent or employee who tries to enforce a federal law that infringes on that individual's right to keep and bear arms or any other individual's right to keep and bear arms. This Missouri law is essentially similar to what Texas did with their SB 8 Texas abortion law and the recent Supreme Court decision in the Whole Women's Health case. That fact is also very important for why the Whole Women's Health decision was also referred to by Justice Alito in that recent 8-1 order by the Supreme Court. Now, if you're not aware, the Texas abortion law, or SB 8, prohibits an abortion if a fetal heartbeat is present. This law is different from other laws because it's not enforced by the state of Texas or any of its executives, but rather it allows any individual, any resident, to sue any other individual who performs or knowingly aids and abets in the activity. This means that the enforcement mechanism is not held with the state or any of its officers or agents. Instead, the enforcement mechanism is the private residents who will file these civil lawsuits. Now, here again is where things become relevant for Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act and the recent Supreme Court denial in this case. SB 8 shielded Texas and its officers and agents from lawsuits that they could potentially face because, again, they weren't the ones enforcing this law. Traditionally, the goal in these types of cases is to get an injunction against maybe like a state or whoever is enforcing the law, and that injunction prevents the law from actually being enforced. Because, again, laws aren't necessarily struck down in their entirety. Instead, usually what happens is they are enjoined, and their enforcement is enjoined. And so the goal oftentimes with these types of laws is to get an umbrella injunction against the state, its attorney general, and all of its officers and agents. But again, the issue is, what if a state like Texas and its officers and agents are not actually the ones enforcing the law in question? You can't really get an injunction against them. Even if you do get an injunction against them, it's not going to resolve anything for you. So you can see how the structure of these types of laws are meant to avoid broad injunctions, and that's exactly what Missouri did with their law. They allow citizens to sue agents and anyone involved in the process of enforcing unconstitutional Second Amendment laws. So that's the backdrop of Missouri's 2A Preservation Act, which is in some ways kind of copied and applied some of these concepts to firearms. Now, this Missouri law was put in place before that, but it's a similar structure and scheme. The state removed themselves from enforcing the law and instead gave the citizens the power to sue state officials and their agents and anyone who's enforcing these anti-gun laws. Think of this as the state of Missouri saying, we believe in the Second Amendment so much that we're going to pass this super pro-2A law and we're not going to enforce it ourselves. Instead, the power is in the citizens to sue us and our officers and agents if we ever violate the law. Now, the District Court on review struck down this entire Missouri law and enjoined the state of Missouri and its officers and agents from enforcing it. But again, as I outlined, here is the issue. None of those officers or agents or the state of Missouri were enforcing it anyways. The people are the ones who are enforcing it. Missouri, in response to this, then appealed the decision up to the 8th Circuit and also asked for a stay from the 8th Circuit while this decision was pending for an appeal. However, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals denied that stay, and that then led the state of Missouri to file an emergency application for Supreme Court consideration and for the Supreme Court to grant a temporary stay. And recently, we got an order from the Supreme Court. It was an 8-1 decision, an order by the court denying that stay. The order of the court states that the application for stay presented to Justice Kavanaugh and by him referred to the court is denied. Justice Thomas would have granted the application for a stay. So again, it was an 8-1 order, and the only justice on the Supreme Court who would have granted Missouri's request for a stay was Justice Thomas. Now, in response to this also, there was a little note by Justice Gorsuch and Alito where they added some additional context, and that's where you got the reference to the whole women's health case. And this statement from Justice Alito and Gorsuch states that, with the understanding that the district court prohibited only implementation and enforcement of HB 85 by the state of Missouri and its officers, agents, and employees, and any others in active concert with such individuals, I agree with the denial of the application for a stay under the present circumstances. An injunction purporting to bind private parties not before this district court or the challenged provisions themselves, however, would be inconsistent with the equitable powers of federal courts. And there, in that sentence, they cite to whole women's health. Now, the goal of this was to get a stay from the Supreme Court, but only Justice Thomas was in favor of granting that stay. Now, typically, the Supreme Court does not like to get involved in these cases, especially at the early stage of these litigations. But more importantly, what was also interesting was Alito and Gorsuch saying in the order that essentially the district court's injunction only applies to the state and its agents, and it does not prevent private individuals who maybe want to sue the state or any of officers, agents who tried to enforce this law. And like I broke down, that's kind of the whole purpose of this law. So even though the Supreme Court issued that 8-1 order, I still would have preferred them to grant the stay, but in some ways they're also hinting at the fact that it still can be enforced. Now, despite this 8-1 order by the Supreme Court, the state of Missouri has not given up, and they responded quick. They filed for expedited review of this case in the 8th Circuit because the Supreme Court stay denial has in some way changed the status quo of Missouri's laws. They're asking for oral arguments to take place at the earliest possible time, and the government's attorneys also did not oppose an expedited review of this case. And the 8th Circuit recently just issued an order expediting review of this issue. The order of the 8th Circuit states that appellant's motion for an expedited hearing is granted, and the clerk is directed to set the case for oral argument during the week of February 12th through the 16th of 2024. Counsel will be advised of the date, time, and location of the argument when the February calendar is published. So that's at least a small light of hope in this case, especially after the Supreme Court denied that stay. At least the 8th Circuit is taking into account what had recently happened in the Supreme Court and is trying to push this case forward potentially as fast as they can. Of course, they always could be faster, but at least they are setting this for expedited review, and it will be heard in early February. The hope is that on review of this case and on the review of the merits, the 8th Circuit ultimately will strike down the lower court's decision. Regardless, I think this is one of those cases that has some interesting facts and an interesting and nuanced approach that will eventually make its way back up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will have to review this and decide this case probably at one point on the merits. So this is a really interesting case, interesting situation. At least the 8th Circuit is taking this serious, it seems like, in an expedited review. But I'm not super hopeful for this. I think the only way that we would get something super significant out of this case is if it eventually makes its way back up to the Supreme Court. But you have that 8-1 decision from the Supreme Court where they denied this stay. So you can take that for an indication maybe how the Supreme Court would treat this, but we'll have to wait and see. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below, and I will try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and you'd like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm, and it signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. As always, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do my own. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.
Well, hello. This is a test show. This is the first time I've been able to actually get my show
to be up and running and starting. There is no one in the queue and there is no one in the chat. That's why I kind of wanted to do the test, because it's late night. There's no other live shows on. And so now I'm actually able to get in. Earlier tonight, I tried to do a test show, and it didn't work out. I could not call into the host line and start my show. It got a busy signal. Last Sunday night, lots of problems. I spent like 3 hours trying to get my show to start. I recreated deleted the old show, created a new show, all kinds of stuff. So, for whatever reason, I could not get my show going. I'm the last on the totem pole, apparently, in the priority list. Meanwhile, other people could do their shows. Several other hosts could do their shows. For the life of me, I've not been able to get mine going, even earlier tonight. But I decided to test it now that it's super, super late. It is 12:16 in the morning, Pacific time. And there were no other live shows scheduled, so I decided I'm going to test it out. And this is after Jim Clark's show abruptly ended everybody. We were into overtime, and Blog Talk hung up on all of us and ended the show like 15 minutes or so early. Very similar to how all these problems started. It was a week ago last Thursday on Jim Clark's show that we were on, and we were into overtime, and Blog Talk ended it about 15 to 20 minutes early or so. And then there's been nothing but problems ever since. Meanwhile, I am, unlike most others, I'm not paying month per month. I paid for the full year up. The reason why was because I got 30% off for 6 months. And then by paying for the full year, it's essentially like getting an additional 2 months free. So I paid that up. All of the other Blog Talk hosts that are paying monthly have been offered, those that complain anyway and sent messages saying, hey, what's going on? I can't do my show, right? They have been offered a month free. But what about people like me? What about those of us? I'm guessing we must be few that we paid up the whole year for free, paid up the whole year. So, my subscription does not expire or renew until September of 2024. So offering me a month free is pretty useless at this point. That's kind of like delayed gratification. Instead of expiring in September, it'll expire in October, Come on now, 10 months from now, they got to offer me something else. And after all of my messages to Blog Talk over these issues, I suggested they upgrade me to gold again. I was on the gold, the 3-hour show, up until last September. I downgraded to the 2-hour show. And so that's my compromise, is like, if you want to compensate me, upgrade me to gold and feature my show again. I have never before missed doing my show on Sunday nights, ever. Until last August was the first time they had problems. They were down for 4 days, having issues doing their live shows. That was the first time I had to cancel my show ever. The second time was 2 weeks ago Sunday. the week before Christmas Eve because they were having these problems. And then my Christmas Eve show that I spent 3 hours trying to get working. It was aggravating. It was exhausting, calling over and over again. I think I called on my phone like 40 times. And then also Direct Connect, trying to see which one might get me in to actually be able to start the show. No go. That was exhausting. That was seriously exhausting. Like, Merry Christmas to me. Let's spend 3 hours on Christmas Eve trying to get my show going. Because I knew that other shows were going just fine. For some reason, if you're lucky, I don't know what the magic sauce is, but some people, some hosts have been able to do their shows and they're not having any problems. And other people like me and Robert, Conservative Nation Media, we may as well hang ourselves trying to get our shows going. Like, what is the deal here? What explains why some people have their shows going on with no problem and other shows like mine and like Robert's going on, not being able to be done at all? Joe Gibson earlier today was able to do his show without a problem, while a couple other hosts couldn't get theirs done either. It's just, what is this? I don't get it. Some live shows happen without a hitch, and others like me, we can't even get our show started. Or if we do happen to get it started, anybody that tries to call in can't call in, busy signal or just call drops or whatever. All kinds of issues. This is way too long, you guys. We are all paying for this service. It's a contract. There's a terms of service. Even though we're paying Blog Talk Radio, we have to comply with their terms of service. Well, it goes both ways, Blog Talk. It really does. It goes both ways. If you're not providing the service that I'm paying for, you are in breach of contract. What are you going to do about that? You are in breach of contract. I am paying you for your service, and I am not getting that service. You are in breach of contract. If anything, they should upgrade me to gold until September 2024. If anything. Because they've screwed with my show. I have never, ever had to cancel my show for my own personal or whatever reasons. The only time, all 3 times now that I've had to cancel my regular Sunday show is because of problems with Blog Talk. The first time was in August, and during their 4-day issues with live shows, and now it's 2 weeks in a row, including my Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve show. Will things be up and running? Will my show work for my New Year's Eve show? Because that's what I got planned for Sunday night is my New Year's Eve show, like I did last year. Is that going to work? I don't know. I haven't set up the show because who knows how much longer these issues are going to happen. And I sent them, I'm a techie person. I sent them a message stating I was previously in my last job a senior IT support analyst at the company I work for. So explain to me what is going on. I will understand your language. Is it a problem with the data centers? Is it a problem? What is the nature of the problem, and why is it so hit or miss? Explain this to me. You can at least give me an explanation. They don't give an explanation as far as the nature of the problem. But I'm demanding it. I demand that you give me an explanation as far as why this outage has gone long as it has, and why some shows go without any problems, while others like mine, I can't even start it. I get busy signal after a long delay. Or on Sunday, eventually, I think it was like 9 o'clock Pacific time. And I actually got in and I got excited. It was like, put in your host pin, press 1 to start the show. And I was excited. But then guess what? My show wouldn't start. I pressed 1. And after a delay, it would say, we're sorry. We're having a problem with our systems right now. Please try your call again later. Like, what? Wait a minute, what? I'm finally able to actually have the host line pick up, but I press 1 to start the show, and that doesn't even do it. Come on now, folks. They got to explain this shit to me. I would be much more understanding if they would just explain it. And I'm a techie person. Like I said, I can speak their language, At least have me understand. I wouldn't be quite so pissed off if I understood what the nature of these problems are and to explain what's going on here. Anyway, so nobody showed up in the chat. Nobody's in the switchboard. Apparently everybody's asleep because it is 12:27 my time. So everybody's kind of curled up in their blankies. I did send some messages out on Facebook to see if anybody's awake and wanted to try calling in during this test episode. But I think everybody's sleeping. They be sleeping. So I'm going to play a clip. Oh, wait. I got a 225. Ooh, I got a 225 calling in. Just showed up. It looks like it might be Mike. Is it Mike? Let's find out. I'm bringing Mike on in.
Yes, it is. It is me.
Hey,
yeah,
you are still awake.
Yeah, I'm usually up at this
and
time
hey,
anyway,
for the first time in over 2 weeks, I'm able to go live. Only because I'm like the only other one doing it. How about that?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens on Friday night when Robert if Robert decides to do his show,
Yeah, I don't know. Like, he put up that test show earlier, and he's like, this is going to be the last show of the year. So that makes me kind of think that he might not do a show on Friday. I don't know. Well, I got to clarify with him.
Right. I will. Now, I've said this before. Generally on Friday mornings or whatever. Well, it'd be Friday morning, early Friday morning your time. But generally on Friday mornings at 11 a.m. Central Time, I got a guy that does a wrestling show on DTR. Generally, now he hadn't been able to do his show because of the problems, right? If he's able to do his show on Friday, and we're able to call in on his show, then it is a good chance that somebody can do a show on Friday as well. But like you said, maybe Ryan Reck would do a show on Friday if Robert, decides not to, But hey, we'll see.
Yeah, I need to thank Ron Reck more because, it was fucking Christmas Eve and my show wasn't working and he put a show on. And I was just so pissed off at the whole situation. I didn't adequately thank him enough. Because I know he damn sure didn't want to fucking put on a show on Christmas Eve, but he did it because mine wasn't working. And so I need to make sure next time I run into him that I thank him more adequately than I failed to do so, because, like I said, I was so fucking frustrated and exhausted that I know he put up the show, and then Jim Clark put up his show, and so I moved over to there because I was like, what the fuck? Why is Jim Clark able to put on a show without an issue? Like, what the fuck? I've been trying for 3 hours to get my show going, and his goes lickety split, no problem. So I really didn't mean to abandon Ron Reck's show, like I did, but it just got, and then I came back to Ron Reck's show because, of course, I knew it would probably still be on by the time Jim Clark's show wrapped up. And I came back in and stuff. But, I do appreciate Ron Reck doing that. And I know he didn't want to. The last thing you wanted to do on Christmas Eve was put on a show, I think. But he did it for me.
Yeah.
That pisses me off, too. That pisses me off, too. Because Ron Reck is paying for his Mixler subscription. Plus, he's paying for a dedicated Skype number, plus his, equipment, his physical equipment, his mixer, so that he can combine the two together, and he's doing this for us. He did it for Robert. He did it for me. We're having these problems, and he's putting on these Mixler shows for us. He shouldn't have to do that. And he's not even asking us to pay him for it. Like, we just interrupted your fucking life, to put on a show because Blog Talk ain't working.
No. I've said it before about Blog Talk. The guy that he does his wrestling show that I'm on has been we've been doing that wrestling show for, a decade. All right, and he's been having problems with Blog Talk almost from the beginning of that show. All right, that's been almost over a decade. In fact, 2014, 2013, something like that. So yeah, that was even before they sold to whomever they sold to the first time. And it's like, if through different companies they can't get their shit together, think about it. This isn't the first. You're not the first set of people that they've had problems with Blog Talk Radio.
What do I gotta do? Whose dick do I gotta suck to be favored status and have my show go on like Jim Clark's did with no problem? Whose dick do I gotta suck? How big is it? I'll take it, man. I'll fucking take it. I'll fucking gag on that shit. I don't care. Whatever. Whose fucking big ass dick do I gotta suck to get my show to work? Because I'm not one of the fortunate ones.
Well, let me ask you this question. What if it's not a dick you gotta suck? What if it's a pussy you gotta eat?
Oh, God. Oh, my God. I didn't think about that. Oh, God, why did you have to say that? Oh, that's a whole other level. I have never, ever once in my life licked a pussy. I really don't want to. I do not find pussies attractive at all. I'm really glad you guys do. Like, fucking have at it. You like it? Great. I look at it and think it's like, that's the fucking ugliest thing. But hey, that's me. Man, I don't know. I better be platinum member then. If I gotta lick a pussy in order to get my show to work, you better upgrade me to platinum. That $250 a month plan. 'cause I ain't licking a fucking pussy for cheap, man. You know, I'll suck a dick for cheap, but I won't lick a pussy for cheap.
I'm just asking the next logical question. You know, you said you do one thing. I mean, you know, for the ability to be able to do your show.
Oh, I am not gender neutral. Or, okay, I have to also disclose, if you are a former female that got surgically changed to have a fake penis, that costs extra too. That's a whole other level. Like, you know, I can eat another woman's pussy probably easier than I can suck a fake dick, a fake surgical dick, you know, that has like, you know, pubic hairs growing on it. Like,
but yeah,
I mean, there's no way. Like, I don't even want to see that. I don't want to see the horror in front of my face that is a surgically made dick on a previous woman that got surgically done to have a penis.
Yeah.
I really, really don't want to see that. There'd be a very, very high price to pay for that shit. And, you know, you call me as, you know, a transphobia person, then fine. But no, I've seen too much about these surgeries and the skin that they use. You know, they'll use the skin from the forearm to make the fake penis. And that's why it grows hair.
Yeah. Yeah, but
I don't want to be sucking a hairy penis. I'm sorry. It's a hairy, fake penis. That's no. There is absolutely nothing attractive about that to me at all, period. Penises are not supposed to have hair growing on them. It's just the way it is. Sorry. I don't need to get fucking hair stuck in my teeth when I'm fucking giving head. No. Mm-mm.
Nah. Anyway, that's the point. The point
that's
is
grossness. Yeah, I know. I went way too off on that one, but that's like the reality. Like, it's a scary reality. Like, I think it's all these people that support this shit. Like, yeah, get the surgeries. Yeah, do it. Yeah. We're all inclusive. We'll support you. We love you. You know, but what they don't want to fucking admit is watching what the actual process is and what the end result is. And it's sincerely unattractive to anybody. You know, I don't know who can be attractive to a fake surgically made, due to transitioning from male to, you know, from female to male, the end result. You know, it's like, no, who the fuck is going to be attracted to that? You know, nobody's going to be attracted to that. Nobody in their right mind anyway.
No.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, that's the thing. I mean, if we don't want to fall on a tangent, you know, with this shit, but, you know, in terms of what do you have to do to get your show on there on a consistent basis, you know, and that's and not have it, you know, have it with calls and everything else, and be able to do whatever you got to do with it, and all that shit, and that's what we're having.
I probably have to sign up with some Ukrainian fucking sex trafficking ring in order to actually have Blog Talk. Yeah. Get my show going.
Yeah.
On my regular night. I think the only reason my show is going on right now is because there was no other live shows going on. No competition. Nothing else going on. Sure. It's dead air everywhere. So They allowed my show to go on. But if I were to try to do a test show tomorrow at 6 p.m., my normal time, guess what? Probably won't work. I'll try it. I'll try it tomorrow night at a usual time, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, during the prime time. I'll try it. Guess what? Probably won't work.
We'll see. We'll see. You never know.
The only reason why I put this test show on tonight was because Jim Clark's show was going, no problem, for the first 2 hours. And then we were about almost 50 minutes into the bonus hour, and then Blog Talk hung up on us. That's the only reason why I put this show up. So I'm like, okay, I want to see. I'm just fucking curious. I want to see if it'll actually let my show go through now that nobody else is on. And here we are.
Right, and that's
just me
and
you. And whoever's listening out there that isn't in the chat room. Because it's just you and I here on the phone and nobody in the chat room right now. I was just going to play clips. Until I saw you call in, I was like, okay, I'll play another clip. May as well. I have a shit ton of clips that I uploaded to prepare for my show, my Christmas show, that I couldn't play. But, of course, now Christmas is past. We don't delete all those.
When I saw you, and when I saw the notification in the bullshitting room, you know, it popped up on my phone, okay? So, okay, I said, oh, okay, fine. I usually do get in the chat room. I said, well, fuck it. I'll just go ahead and call and see if it actually goes through, and not waste time getting in the chat room, you know, going to Blog Talk Radio. Hopefully the call goes through, and it did. That's how I did that.
Yeah, and you pressed 1 to raise your hand, and it shows that on my end, too.
Cool.
So it reflects that you raised your hand.
Right, that was
Which
one of the other things that we're having problems with. At one point, you call in and you raise your hand. When you call into a show and you try to raise your hand, it usually says, okay, you are now in the host queue, right? That's what it says from my end, right? So when they started to have their problems, you call in and you press 1, and it wouldn't give you that message that you're in the host queue. It was just like dead air.
Yeah.
You press the number.
And then on Donnie's show, not last Saturday, but the Saturday before, like the muting and unmuting went on randomly. It was like, you know, he couldn't see who was pressing 1, and then he would unmute, and then it would randomly unmute, you know, remute, and then even sent people into the green room. Like, it was like totally flipping out. Randomly.
Right, and that's the thing. And I'll go back to what my guy Marcus does. He does his show, right? His wrestling show. Where he'll have 2 or 3 guys on there that, along with himself, that he'll bring up what's going on or whatever, and this, that, and the other, and he'll go, Mike, what do you think about X? I'll say my piece. He'll put me on hold. He'll go on to Todd or there's a third guy, a fourth guy, but I can't remember his Tom, and he'll do the same thing. He'll come to the guy. We'll say our piece. He'll put us back on hold. He'll go to the next guy. He'll say his piece. He'll put him back on hold. The third, fourth guy, you know, this, that, and the other, right? So that's how he runs his show. Now, when the problem started, and he was still able to do his show, but when the problem started, he had to just do what we usually do, right? What Ron Reck does, you know. Ron Reck will just fucking open the phone lines and have at it, right? Or you'll just open the phone lines and just have at it. Yeah, you'll give your co-host on Sundays. You'll say, okay, whatever, come in and say something, and then you'll start opening the phone lines, right? After that, I'll be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all
Joe
do it a
will
little
be there.
differently. Yeah, Vaughn does it one by one. He'll talk one by one, bring somebody on one by one, and then that's the way they want to do it. With me, I try to bring them on once they press one, because I recognize that some people dial in and they just want to listen. They're in their car or whatever. And they don't really want to talk. They just want to listen. All right, fine. When you press one, then I'll chat, bring you in when I can. So we all run our shows a little bit differently in that regard.
That's the thing.
And other people just, bring everybody in. You call in, you're there. Stay muted on your end. Whichever way works for you. Kind of a thing. I don't blame them. But even then, that's what Donnie started to do. It's just anybody that was on the switchboard, he unmuted, and it was still, not last Saturday, but Saturday before, it was just like randomly muting and unmuting me and other people. It was like the fucking switchboard was possessed. Big time.
The Ouija switchboard.
Yes, it was the Ouija switchboard. We and ya. We, the Ouija. Ouija.
Yeah.
It's not Ouija, it's Ouija.
That's the thing. I mean, when you're expecting it to work a certain way, at least to work, right? And it's just doing what it's doing, what do you say? I mean, look, and then you have people like Sarge that call in using Skype, right? And John Doe will use Skype sometimes, and all that stuff. And it's like, okay.
John Doe always uses Skype. Sarge normally uses Skype. John Doe always uses Skype.
Right, and then
there are
a few other ones that use. Yeah, there are a few other ones that use Skype, but that's generally
kind of to hide their phone numbers. And there's a reason for that, because even Montana Joe, he's like, hosts of shows would start like calling him or texting him and stuff when he used his real number. And so that's why he decided to, use these VoIP numbers and stuff. Because hosts would kind of, take advantage of the fact that they had their numbers. And, I have people's numbers when they call in, but I keep it privately so that I can recognize them. But I don't use that to, like, contact them without permission, Like, I'm not going to contact you at your phone number just because I have it, and add you to an email list or a text fucking thing or whatever. I'm not going to do that. Unless you've told me it's okay to contact you at that number, I'm not going to, even though I know it, kind of a thing. But not all hosts are like that. And so they'll use their, phone list to kind of reach out and text and call and everything without permission. And I think that's a violation of privacy. That's how I feel about it. I might have your number because you've called into the show, but that doesn't give me permission to contact you outside of the show. That's how I feel about it. That's a violation of your privacy. I'm not going to give your phone number out to anybody else, that kind of thing. I got to respect your privacy and your space, right? And just like how I expect people to do that with mine. Just because I call into your show doesn't mean, the next day you can, use my number to start calling me. You need my permission for that.
Right. And, that's the thing. But, that type of stuff, and then you don't, there are certain people that you really don't want to, kind of get in touch with, and we won't go into that because when you're in as a certain person, and there's a certain person on my end that I want to stay away from, that, that it is what it is with that. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean,
what is it with this hate with Pianki? Like, Shabaka hates Pianki. There's several people that hate Pianki so vehemently, and I'm like, why? I fucking love Pianki, I don't get it, Why do they fucking hate him so much, There's some people that seriously fucking hate Pianki, like on a mass, like seriously fucking hate him. And yet my experience with Pianki has been nothing but positive. I might not always agree with them, but a lot of times I'll be like, okay, yeah, I don't agree on this, but, on this point, I agree with you, Pianki. You know what I mean? Like, and some people just can't, like, fucking accept that. It's like, there's, like, legit hate for Pianki out there. And I don't understand it. I don't understand why people hate him so fucking much.
I mean, remember that point when he and I got, well, it wasn't really an argument because Sarge had said that at that time that we were basically going at an issue from two different ends of the issue, and it was all about that freaking law of 1875 with the voting and the whole thing with what what's his name didn't do, and we were kind of arguing. Well, maybe not arguing per se, but we were, coming at the issue from the two different ends of the issue. So, I have no problem with Pianki, none whatsoever. I just...
Yeah, my experience with him is it's like, he's always heard out my opinions. And, it might be that he agrees with me, 60% of the time, and vice versa. But we've never gotten into, like, a fucking hate fest with each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, Pianki is one of those people where it's like he'll hear people out, but when he knows otherwise, when he has, he's like Sarge, he's very fact-based. He reads into a lot of stuff, so he has like this bunch of knowledge that sometimes kind of makes me rethink my position on something because he's presenting information that I haven't heard before. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to research this, He'll put links in there, and then I'll go further with it and whatnot. That's how it's supposed to be, Pianki's never been disrespectful to me in that regard. Sometimes he'll go off on his rants, and it'll be hard for me to, get a word in. But that's the extent of it. You know what I mean? He doesn't like outright insult me or anything like that. You know what I mean? And it's like, and I don't see him doing that to a whole lot of other people. That's just not how he operates. But man, people fucking hate him. They don't show him the same courtesy. And that's what's wrong. You might vehemently disagree with what he's saying, but, to just full on like fucking hate on him for even saying what he's saying is a completely different story. And it's like, well, are you a patriot or not? Do you support the First Amendment or not? Because the First Amendment doesn't apply toward everything that you actually agree with. And maybe you need to hear these people out, because sometimes, once in a while, sometimes that's knowledgeable, and they have a different set of information than you do, and they're of an opposing opinion. It's at least worth hearing them out, and researching it and looking at it, and then, you can criticize it, whatever, but you can at least understand why they hold the position that they do. And the information that lends them to having their opinion that they do, as wrong as we might think it is. But at least understand that, and it goes both ways. It's like, okay, well, I differ from your opinion, and then here's the facts, and here are the things that have led me to my opinion. And then maybe we can, at the very least, see each other's point of view and understand it, and not get like personal attacks, like you're just an ignorant piece of shit, blah, 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 and start personally attacking. When that shit starts, then that's when the other person is unwilling to even, look at why it is that the opposing opinion has their opinion. It's complete invalidation. And they get sucked into the same mind trap. This is what the cabal wants. And I keep emphasizing this. It's like, this is what the cabal wants. They want us divided like this, where we don't see each other's point of view, where we might have a point of view that differs and completely contrasts our own point of view. But they have their reasons for it, and maybe let's take a look at those reasons. And maybe, we can discredit them, but at least we can understand why they have their opinion. But the cabal absolutely wants us to be so fucking closed-minded that it is impossible for anybody with a differing opinion to present us with information that we have either not seen or have ignored because of cognitive dissonance. And we all fall trapped to that, you and me. And I try to avoid it. I try not to. I really fucking do. But what the cabal wants, what our global rulers want, is exactly that.
Right. And
somebody has a differing opinion, and now we hate you. You're a piece of shit, and blah, blah, blah. And, let's, insult you on every level. Let's invalidate you as a person. Because you hold opinions that we don't agree with. And that is exactly in their game plan. And I think all of us fall into that, whether, we're aware of it or not. But the important key is to try to be aware of it when you're falling right into it. You're falling right into the fucking trap. And the other person's trying to tell you that you're falling into the trap, and, you're calling them a piece of shit for trying to make you aware of it. And, that's where, I think, when you can keep things civil and you take that breath, or two or three, and it's like, okay, let's get back into logic and not emotion here, where the most, beneficial conversations happen. And that's what I try to make my show about.
Right, that's the thing. And think about this. You talk about agreeing with people most of the time, and all that stuff. The theory that Reagan had is that if you agree with me, I'll take you agreeing with me, 75% of the time. That's good enough for me. Because he knew that not everybody wasn't going to agree with him 100% of the time. So if you can get people to agree with you, the majority of the times, 70%, 65, 70, 80% of the time, that's fine. That's a good thing. Because that means that for the most part, you, me, Sarge, Bianchi, John Doe, Ron Reck, Gunslinger, You may not agree with Trump.
That's why we can get along and educate each other.
Along. You may not be. You may not agree with Trump.
Open-minded. And not invalidating the person because of their opinions. That's and that's the trap, like I was talking about. All too common. It's like, oh, your opinion, I disagree with you. So that gives me license to completely attack you as a person and invalidate you as a person, as if, you've never read or, paid attention to anything. You know what I mean? It's like it lifts to hear people out. And the bona fide idiots will present themselves. Trust me. We all know it when we come across somebody that all they do is reiterate the, CNN and the View talking points, But even then, like if that's what they're listening to, then you got to try to understand that and have some empathy. It's like, oh man, where you're getting your information from is the problem. And you try to get them to understand that. And they might not. But don't hate them because that's where they're getting their information from. They are representative of all the people that we need to try to convince that the information that they're getting is completely false, And if we attack them as people, we invalidate them as human beings, we make them lesser than us, then we're never going to bring them onto our side. Never. If we're not even willing to hear them out, And so, but that's what they do to us. And so they're like, oh, well, they did it to us, so, that gives us license to do it to them. And that's not the right way to go. Two wrongs don't make a right. There's a reason why that saying holds true. Be better than that. Be better. Acknowledge why they think the way they think. Validate the reasons why they think the way they think. And then get them in a psychological position to be willing to hear us out. Okay, well, here's our side, and here's the information that we have. And let's just have a civil discussion about this without insulting each other. And when you do that, then you can win people over. I've been won over to left people's sides many times. And it took a lot for me to get won over to a lot of the right people's side of things. Again, when I was young and stupid and I was Democrat,
Well, I was never...
I've gradually become more conservative because of the fact that I'm hearing both sides, and I'm libertarian because I also see how the right contradicts themselves and hypocrite themselves. And, the left and right paradigm, I'm libertarian because it's like, you know what? Both of y'all motherfuckers have gotten us where we are. The Democrat Party, the Republican Party, both of you all have gotten us into these situations. Both of you have fucked our country left and right, for the last 100 and at least 10 years. 1913 with the Federal Reserve and shit, and they've both done it. And so, that's why I don't want to sign on to either party. But I will say, over the last 4 years especially, I've become more from a centrist libertarian, like I used to be, to a more right-leaning libertarian as a result.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, think about it. The whole thing about the Republicans may be kind of hypocritical at times, but the problem with the Democrats is
Nathan is great. Some people don't like to listen to Nathan because he goes on his rants. But Nathan is definitely one of those, he's conservative, but he's very critical of the Republican Party. and he will point out the hypocrisies of the Republican Party.
Right.
And that's why I love Nathan. He will point that shit out, from Reagan on up.
Right, and that's the thing. My thing with the Republican Party, the Republican Party is hypocritical, but the problem is with the Democrats is they don't care that you think they're hypocritical. They may very well be hypocritical, but they don't care. They're more hierarchy than hypocrites, right? They're in power and you're not. That's how they feel about it. Biden, he's in power, you're not. We're not going to see him get his justice, because he's in power and you're not. That's the thing. That's how these people think. The people in the media, they're in power and you're not, so you don't count. We don't want to. You don't want if we decide that we don't want to report on a story like the Hunter Biden laptop, we're not going to report it because you don't deserve. We don't think you deserve to know about that story, right? That's how these things work. That's how the Democrats work.
Yeah.
But
it works both ways. I mean, look at Trump even now. After all the shit that Trump has been going through and how they've been targeting him, even him, if he gets into office, he's going to use all of those same tactics against the Democrats. Does that make him really any better? Or is that just, two wrongs make a right? He's being vengeful.
He's being vengeful.
I kind of think that he's basing his campaign and his electability based on vengeance and revenge, and that's what's drawing people to him. And that's not the right way to do things. If you're a follower of Christ, if you are a follower of Christ, then you should not be supporting somebody that is promoting doing the same wrongs as has been done to them. That is not what Christ preached. Basing your campaign and basing your electability on something like vengeance and revenge is not Christ-like. It really isn't. It really isn't. That's not Christ-like.
Well, yeah.
Christ would be like, no, you need to rise above that. You need to come from a place of love and understanding and reaching out to these people that misunderstand you, and do everything that you can to help them understand you and help them understand that what you're doing is actually for them. But I think that Trump's campaign now is more about vengeance than it is about doing what's best for the American people. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, and that may very well be the truth, but again, I'll say it again. These people have set the rules, right? They've set the rules. They've hated on Trump since the moment he came down that escalator. Okay? And he was just I don't want to say your normal run-of-the-mill billionaire, but, he was a businessman. He built stuff. He may have done a little shady things to get things built in New York, but again, what do you expect? It's New York. You're dealing with, the unions, which aren't really above board and all that crap, and so he's had to do things in his business life that probably weren't all that above board, but that's big business. That's how big business works. Now, can we change that? Will we change that? Will we be able to change that? Who knows? Whatever. Corruption is everywhere, from big business to big government. It's everywhere. I mean, Biden's been doing corruption for how many years?
Yeah,
For 50?
corruption is normal now. They've literally decided, what level of corruption is acceptable. Even down to, okay, people break into your store. If they don't steal more than $1,000 worth of shit, we're not going to prosecute.
Absolutely.
That's the level of corruption. They've, on every single level, they've said this is how much is acceptable before we'll actually do anything about it.
All right, and that's the thing. And here's the deal. Here's what I think, and I've said this before with Biden. The problem with Biden is the corruption that he's doing is right there. It's in our faces. They'd rather it be behind closed doors, under the table, where, it's corruption, but they think, well, it's corruption, and we'll overlook that corruption because it's not there for us. It's not readily there for us to see. You get what I'm saying? Where Biden is just right there. It's in American people's faces. And that's.
I was just going to say it's in your face.
Right. That's the thing. And
I think what was the story I just saw that came out with Biden, Daddy Biden emailed Hunter Biden with his business account something like 47 times in 2014.
Right.
In regards to Hunter Biden's business dealings with the Ukraine and China. And all of this while Biden is trying to claim, I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't involved in any way. Nah, but what they found is that actually Biden himself, his email, 47 emails in 2014 alone to Hunter Biden's business, it's like this shit is going to come out. It's going to be huge. Yeah. I really fucking hope that so much shit comes out in 2024 that it makes it so goddamn clear that Daddy Biden is at the heart of all this corruption. And you have his brother, who is also up on many charges of, fraudulent practices. And there's emails and communications between him and Joe Biden. I mean, it's all going to be coming out. Like, we're going to start to see more and more. Like, and I think the more that comes out, the more these, Biden diehards are just going to be like, okay, there's no fucking denying this anymore. Like they can't legitimately, keep defending Biden.
Right. I've said this before about Hunter. Okay, we know about his vices and his problems. Put that off to the side. The big thing with Hunter is that, okay, it's okay to be a foreign lobbyist, a foreign agent. Okay. You just have to register, that there's the Foreign Agent Registration Act, all right? And from what I understand, he is not registered as a foreign agent, and that is illegal. Hunter Biden.
And that's exactly why the tax fraud charges are against him. Like normally, libertarian me, the income tax doesn't apply to you when you're earning domestic income. But when you are earning foreign-derived income, that is the only thing that the income tax applies to. He was acting as a foreign agent, making money as a foreign agent, and therefore it absolutely applies to the income tax that he avoided. Yep. And because of his father's stature, they let a lot of the statute of limitations run out so that he can't be prosecuted for the shit because the statute of limitations has already run out. They suppressed it long enough. That was the strategy. That's part of the corruption. They suppressed the shit long enough. Back during the election when the fucking, laptop scandal happened, that didn't happen until after the election. And that's when the truth really came out. They suppressed it until after the election. Nothing you can do about it now, folks. You already elected this corrupt motherfucker. Now you're supposed to be happy with it. But they suppressed it not only because of the election, but because of the statute of limitations. So now some of these crimes that Hunter Biden did cannot be prosecuted because more than 10 years have passed. But if it would have been prosecuted back fucking 3 years ago, it would have been legit. So the timing was fucking impeccable.
Oh, and don't get me started about, what's his name? Elon Musk has done a good job with Twitter. But think about it, though. What they go, this thing is going to come out, and this is misinformation, and we want Twitter and Facebook and the rest of them to, fucking cover this up, the Hunter Biden laptop.
Oh, yeah, it was the liberal cabal media that did that. They hoisted up the false Russia fucking collusion shit. That got over the fucking cabal media. And nobody heard of the Hunter Biden laptop. Nobody heard of it until after the fact. And even when they did, it was supposedly debunked till finally Hunter Biden himself admitted that the laptop was his because he went to sue the fucking computer repair shop. It's like, you don't sue the fucking repair shop that you turn your laptop over to if it wasn't actually your laptop. If it wasn't your laptop, how do you sue them? When they were saying, how do you sue them?
Yeah, when they were saying it wasn't
You're
his
admitting
laptop,
that the laptop was yours.
Yeah, when they were saying that it wasn't his laptop at first, and Miranda Devine's book came out, right? Laptop from Hell, right? And that was about the time that he said he was starting to say it's not my laptop, it's not my laptop, but somehow, some way. Bongino had gotten a hold of the actual receipt that had a phone number, his address, Hunter Biden's address, his phone number, his signature, how much he paid for it, everything that receipts had on it, it had there. And it's like, okay. And it had the name of the freaking store, right? The store on it and on it and all that shit. And it's like, okay, we got this receipt. You're saying it's not your laptop. Here's your name. Here's your address. Here's your phone number. Here's your backup phone number. Here's your signature. Here's how much you paid for it. Here's the name. Here's the name of
totally photoshopped. That must be photoshopped. That can't be true. Until a year later, when he starts to sue him because, that was my laptop. You disclosed it. I want to get my laptop back. I'm going to sue you. Like what? You're going to sue the company for a laptop that wasn't yours, that you claimed wasn't yours. That makes a whole fucking hell of a lot of sense.
What did Ron Rex say about leaving something in the hands of somebody else? And he says once you leave something like that in the hands for over 90 days, You know, it's that it belongs to the person you leave it with, and they can do whatever the hell they want with it, which obviously that guy did.
Yeah, they abandon it. They abandon their property, you know. Especially when I think that repair place had called him a couple of times, been like, "Yeah, come pick up your laptop." I think the repair place even showed that they called at least 2 or 3 times to tell Hunter Biden, "Hey, come pick up your laptop, it's ready," and he never did. So it's considered abandoned property.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. This guy is.
I don't need to hang on to this shit forever.
Yep, this guy, Hunter Biden, is not the sharpest tool in the shed. You know, he's not. He
no shit. That
and
cracked out motherfucker. Yeah, he's a fucking reality of his own.
And frankly, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You know, because Joe is. Even when he was with it, he wasn't that smart. As evidenced by he keeps saying, "Well, I graduated at the top of my class at whatever law school that he went to," and it's a lie because apparently he graduated, like very low.
He was a barely passing C student, like in his whole fucking college career, pretty much. If he got an A in anything, it was rare.
Yeah, that's the thing, and the problem is this guy. Again, his corruption is so bad. They can't get rid of him. That he doesn't want to go because he still wants to stay corrupt and he still wants to stay in that office because he knows even in his state that he's in right now, he knows in the back of his head that once he leaves that office, no more corruption because nobody's going to want to deal with him anymore. Nobody's going to want to deal with what's his name, Bob Hunter. Nobody's going to want to deal with all these other people that. His sister and his brother and
yeah, well, you know what? They're still under the control of the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. The Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and their destiny, they are all fucking whores to them. Every one of them. Even Trump. Trump went to Jerusalem and put on the Jewish hat and fucking kissed the stone. Whole goddamn thing. He's in on it too.
All the recent presidents, did that. All of them go there. I mean,
yeah, because they're all part of it.
Not Obama. I don't know if Obama
they
actually
won't be
went.
president unless they support Zionism. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play a clip. Clip I was going to play earlier. Stay tuned, Mike. This is really graceful. This is from about a year ago. And what Zionism is, it's very short. You can go many, many, many documentaries into what Zionism really is and the roots of it and its evil. But this is one that she did, What Christians Aren't Told About Zionism. And so it's not all Jews. We're talking about the upper echelon, like super Zionist, Jewish, control fucking everything, including every goddamn American president, the media, big corporations, big pharma, you name it. The UN, World Economic Forum, all these motherfuckers are all hardcore Zionists, and the history of it is very deceitful. But anyway, so What Christians Aren't Told About Zionism, really graceful, tries to at least approached the subject in a 16-minute clip. So here we go.
Hey, Internet friends. If the world is a kaleidoscope of color, you and I could be looking at the same sky and see totally different shades of blue. Reality is much the same, and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with its complex and winding history, is one of those reality breakdowns where people come away with drastically different reads of the room, based on their upbringing, religious affiliation, schooling, television habits. You know how it is. Only, much like COVID and even the war in Ukraine, we are being forced to choose a side. And it's not simply a selection, but a moral decree. An effective way to shatter the calm of the evening is to have an opposing opinion on this issue amongst good company. So today I'm going to give you a historical overview of the Israel and Palestine conflict that is seldom taught in school or even church to better help us navigate the barrage of violent imagery, harrowing headlines, and narratives meant to stir not only emotion, but serve as a call to action. Let's start with the basics. Judaism isn't Zionism. While Zionism is a political philosophy for a certain group of people, Judaism is a religion. Jewish ancestry is not a requirement for practicing Judaism. To be a Zionist, you don't have to be Jewish. The official definition of Zionism is a movement for originally the reestablishment and now the development and protection of a Jewish nation in what is now Israel. Zionism was established as a political organization in 1897. Basically, Zionists believe that according to the Torah, God made a covenant or a sacred agreement with the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchs of Judaism. So in the Old Testament, as it's interpreted by Zionists, God basically acts as a real estate agent and promises Abraham and his descendants a specific land, often referred to as the Promised Land or the Land of Canaan. The land is described in various passages in the Bible, and it includes the territory that makes up modern-day Israel, as well as parts of surrounding areas. If you're new here, I'm from the Bible Belt of the United States, where Christian Zionism is widespread. Believing that Israel and the Jews are the chosen people and that Israel is the promised land for Jews is taught in church as a gateway to salvation and eternal life. Keep in mind that as Christians, we are also taught that the way to eternal life and salvation is through Christ, whom religious Jews reject, and they also reject the idea of hell or eternal damnation. And I just want to remind Christians who might be watching that everything changed with the New Testament, which is why Christians are taught from both the Old and New Testament. Remember, Jesus rolled up, started performing miracles, flipping over tables of money changers, and said it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you got, who your daddy is. As long as you walk with Christ, you're chosen for eternal salvation. And this changed everything. It gave everyday people hope and put them on an even playing field.
Point of view, where we don't believe in the divinity of Christ. I think that there you can make an argument that the Gospels, which were written...
He was just a prophet. Right?
No. We don't even believe he was a prophet.
What do you think he was? What do you guys think he was?
What do I think he was historically? I think he was a Jew who tried to lead a revolt against the Romans and got killed for his trouble.
But just like Christians, there are certain sects of Judaism that believe one thing and other Jews believe something else. So Jews who follow the Babylonian Talmud, a rabbinical text, are taught that there is a distinction between Jews, who are considered the chosen people in Jewish theology, and those who are not Jewish. The word used to describe the non-Jewish, including Christians, is goyim or goy. It is a derogatory Yiddish term meaning cattle or beast, often used in place of the word Gentile. And this distinction, or this perception, well, it just totally discards the concept of an even playing field. The perception of the self, the teachings are inherently otherly in ways that others could never achieve if they weren't born into it. The first big departure from Israel happened during the Babylonian exile, almost 600 years before Christ, when King Nebuchadnezzar II of the Babylonian Empire took over Jerusalem and destroyed the first temple, Solomon's temple. Then Rome conquered Jerusalem in 70-ish AD, destroying the second temple, the central hub of Jewish worship and sacrifice. About 70 years later, the Romans changed the name of the area from Judea to Palestina. Okay, so like I said, the original Bible Jews fled Judea to surrounding areas throughout the centuries. But there's a key event that happened in Jewish history that no one really ever addresses. And I'm just going to warn you, it's a highly debated event. It really gets people worked up to talk about it. During the Middle Ages, between the 7th and 10th centuries, the kingdom of Khazaria ruled over parts of Russia, Kazakhstan, and modern-day Ukraine. So under the Khazarian Empire, the kingdom made all the civilians who were reportedly polytheistic and pagan, they made them convert to Judaism. And it's believed that the decision to convert was a political choice to stay independent and avoid religious pressures from the Christian Byzantine Empire to the west and the Islamic Caliphate to the south, meaning that Khazarians were not necessarily Jews in the sense that Bible Jews were, if that makes sense. They had the identity, but not the connection to ancient Israel. After the fall of the Khazarian Empire in the 10th century, Khazarians migrated and integrated across Europe. In all fairness, it should be noted that a bunch of Jews call the Khazar history a conspiracy theory. They say it's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory, even though you can open up a history book and it's right there, so I don't know what to tell you. Chinese Muslims don't pretend they're Arabs, but white Europeans claim to be Bible Israelites, and we all just pretend that's perfectly normal. Eventually, Jewish people arrived in Western Europe and America, and forgive me because it's getting a little dicey here, making the distinction between Bible Jews and converted Jews, but apparently it's an important distinction because it determines whether America is willing to send billions of tax dollars and soldiers to a nation. So we've got to at least touch on the difference. So let's fast forward to the late 1800s when Zionism allegedly got its start in response to the resurgence of anti-Semitism. By the way, anti-Semitism before the definition was changed in 2016 used to mean hostility towards Semites. A Semite being a member of any of the peoples who speak or spoke a Semitic language, including in particular the Jews and the Arabs. Now it just means hatred of Jewish people. When Zionism was just getting traction, among the considerations for a Jewish state were Argentina, Uganda, Cyprus, and even Texas. Throughout the early 1900s, numerous Zionist groups began to pop up across the United States, with their various publications serving as a vehicle for Zionist propaganda. The goal was to influence both the United States Congress and the general public, though the sentiment amongst U.S. officials at the time was that Zionism countered both U.S. interests and principles, since it involved matters related to other countries other than the United States. Clearly, much has changed since then. But then the world descended into war. A secret deal called the Sykes-Picot Treaty was made during World War I, the result of which was bringing down the Ottoman Empire. The treaty was made public in 1916 and set new borders for the Middle East, splitting the area into states, and Palestine was put under international control. But strangely enough, the Balfour Declaration, which was written in a letter to Walter Rothschild by the UK's Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour, promised Palestine as a home for the Jewish people. And this letter was sent just 1 year after the Sykes-Picot Treaty. It's important to remember that the Rothschild banking family actively funded both sides of the war. This was also done during World War II because countries at war needed money to do things like feed and arm their men. But for Rothschild Zionism, making money was just the cherry on top. They needed Jewish people to be traumatized. They needed Jewish people to have a reason to live in fear and want to migrate to Israel, which would serve as a hub to help them rule the Middle East. And they needed global superpowers to back them up. But even before World War II, Zionists were busy buying up land in Palestine and moving there. Palestine was a place where Jews, Christians, and Muslims already lived. The Zionist Federation of Germany and the Nazi government signed the Havara Agreement in 1933. This made it easier for German Jews to move to Palestine, and it let Jewish people in Germany move some of their wealth out of Germany by buying things made in Germany to send to Palestine. Jews who had left their homes used the money they made from selling these goods in Palestine to settle down there. As a result of the deal, about 60,000 German Jews moved to Palestine before it was officially ended when World War II broke out in 1939. Before the State of Israel was officially established, the Palestinians revolted. Zionists said this was because of their anti-Semitism, but Palestine was their home, and the Arabs knew it was being attacked and taken away from them. Were they just supposed to, give away their homes and family farms without a peep? Y'all like, oh, no problem, we'll just bulldoze our homes ourselves. That's just a little bit unrealistic, don't you think? 700,000 Palestinians were forced from their homes when the State of Israel was created. Some people might call this an ethnic cleansing of the land. More and more Palestinian land has been claimed by Israel every year since its creation. And every day there is a war. In 1967, Israel was at war with 6 surrounding Arab states. As a result, Israel won and took over the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, and of course, the Syrian Golan Heights. The UN has asked Israel to leave these lands to give them back, but they have held on to them, which has created extremely high tensions in the region, giving rise to extremist groups, which are then funded by the CIA and Mossad and whoever else, so they can control the opposition, which is always their MO. Zionists say that their treatment of Palestinians is okay because after World War II, everyone abandoned Israel. They were truly on their own and surrounded by people who didn't like them being there. The excuse for their aggression was that they were protecting themselves. After all, Jewish Zionists believe that they are God's chosen people and that this land was given to them by God and it's their duty, their manifest destiny, if you will, to take it. This whole argument has transformed into, do we not have a right to protect ourselves in the face of such extreme anti-Semitism? Let's call a spade a spade. It's all a bit gaslighty. As part of Zionism's manifest destiny, there is perpetual war and death in the Middle East. The United Nations doesn't punish Israel for their violations of human rights as they grow into the greater Israel. Even so, Resolution 3379 of the UN General Assembly in 1975 said that Zionism was a form of racism and racial discrimination. This decision was taken away in 1991. Still, it seems like Israel is a Jewish state, but only for a certain kind of Jewish people. The Palestinian Jews who were there the entire time and the Ethiopian Jews who moved there in the 1980s and early 1990s aren't wanted there. Bethlehem, historically associated with Jesus Christ, has seen its Christian population decrease significantly, from 80% in the 1920s to just 20% today. A similar decline has occurred throughout Palestine, where Christians now make up only about 1% of the population. Some people might say that this decline is because of tensions in the Middle East between Palestinian Muslims and Christians. However, a study from 2017 found that the main reason Palestinian Christians left was the pressure of Israeli occupation. The study reported that ongoing restrictions, unfair laws, random arrests, and land seizures are some of the things that make Palestinian Christians feel hopeless. Every day for decades, the Israelis and the Palestinians are at war with each other. Eventually, Israel put up a wall between territories, effectively surrounding the Palestinian population of 2 million like they're caged animals, providing only a couple of guarded exits. Palestinian civilians often get caught up in the crossfire, leaving their hospitals, schools, and homes destroyed by Israel. Meanwhile, Israel built their Iron Dome missile defense system in the 2000s to defend against rocket threats from Hezbollah and Hamas. The United States funds both sides of the conflict, giving Palestinians $600 million annually and Israel around $3.3 billion in foreign aid annually. To wrap it all up here, Israel has and continues to commit human rights violations against Palestinian civilians, which have been documented by the UN and human rights organizations. There are repeated examples, daily tragedies that global superpowers have turned a blind eye to. Presumably in the United States, it's because the Zionist lobby has a great deal of power over the politicians. Any criticism of Israel and its practices gets shut down by accusations of anti-Semitism before one sentence ever leaves your mouth. And of course, the Palestinians hate the Israelis. Of course, the Israelis hate the Palestinians. Who is right? Who is wrong? Do you actually believe that the same media who lied to get us into every major war, Vietnam, the Gulf Wars, into the war on drugs, intact passports at the bottom of the Twin Tower rubble. War on terrorism, COVID, mass saves lives, Ukraine. Do you actually believe they're telling you the truth about what happened in the last few weeks between Israel and Palestine? The events of which will inevitably escalate and lead to greater involvement of global superpowers and eventually cost the lives of many American soldiers? Do you actually believe that they're telling you the truth? If everything went down exactly as the media reported, of course Hamas is in the wrong for killing Israeli civilians. The whole sophistication of the Israeli intelligence and military surveillance apparatus being down during that particular time is a little suspect, but I digress. I hope that if you're a Christian, you'll consider what I've said. I know you're good people. I know you have big hearts, and I know you hate to see others suffer. But if you're going to cheer on the genocide of an entire population and beg for Americans to get involved, I hope and pray that you know the true identity and intent of our greatest ally in the Middle East. Because by your logic, you're basing your entire eternal salvation on supporting them in their actions. Just make sure that you're sure. That's all. By the way, I wish we had a single politician who was as fired up about what's happening in the United States as they are about Israel. Wouldn't that be something? What if people directed their energy towards bankers and puppeteers funding both sides of the conflict instead of choosing a side in this false dichotomy? What do you think, Internet friends? I'm sure I've upset some of you by saying this. I just humbly ask for your consideration of what I've laid out here, and I contemplated a long time about doing this video, and I still felt like after a week it was important enough to post. Relaying this type of information is not something I take lightly. But anyway, thank you for your time, thank you for subscribing, and thank you for buying my book, The Deep State Encyclopedia. Bye.
Okay, so I've been having a sneezing fit. And like I said, that was, what's her face? No, not what's her face. Shit. Really graceful. Sorry, I'm distracted because I'm trying to hold back a sneeze. Really graceful. What Christians aren't told about Zionism. And she brings up a lot of good points. And like I said, you can go down so many rabbit holes. What she covered in that 16 minutes just pales in comparison to, when you go down these rabbit holes. And,
right.
Who are we really supporting here?
Right.
And the cabal, I've even said, I've watched several things where even from 1,000 years before Christ, even longer, these particular sect of Jews did not want to give up their worship of Baal, of Satan and demons, and child sacrifice and human sacrifice and all of these, these Satanistic things. And that's why this sect was expelled time and time again wherever they went. Because they thought that, oh, yay, thank you for accepting us in, but we practice in child sacrifice, so lo and behold, pretty soon, prepubescent boys and girls were disappearing, everywhere they went, and found out that they were used for sacrifice. And so it's this particular sect of Jews, and I know it's in the Bible that describes it. And they've been fooling everybody ever since. And the Khazarians, in the clip that you heard about, that's their basis. It's that sect. When they talk about getting expelled left and right, it's that particular sect. That one sect that did not want to give up child and human sacrifice and torture and all this other kind of stuff. And then they were forced to convert, and they changed their names. And one of those names that they changed to was Rothschild. Another one of those names that they changed to was Rockefeller. This is the family lineage. This is there's a whole fucking history of this. And so it's it's not, your regular, your actual historical Jew. It's really this offshoot that's always been exiled left and right, and for valid reasons. And they're the ones that have changed their names, and they have taken over. And number one is the Rothschilds, number two is the Rockefellers. Their family history, where they were when Islam and the Arabs took over and forced people to convert to Islam. So they are the same sect where they converted to that, changed their names. They've done it throughout history. They'll convert whatever. It doesn't matter. They're all, that's why they hate Russia. It was the native Russians that expelled them for the similar reasons. They were too barbaric. They were too, anything. And they're still, and now they're in power today more and more. Klaus Schwab is part of that bloodline. Klaus Schwab is exactly doing, he's part of that whole bloodline.
Right. Right. And think about this, though. This all started, I've said this before, and when okay, go read your Bible, okay? And in the Bible, there was a famine in Genesis, and no, not a famine, but there was a problem. They moved into the land originally. Israel had moved into the land originally. He was still at that point. At that point he changed his name to Israel. But he moved into the land, and then one of he had 12 sons, and they sold one of the sons into slavery into Israel. It's in the Bible, right? Okay, so, and then there was a famine in the land, and then they had to go and grovel to the son in Israel who had married in Egypt, and he'd married an Egyptian woman at that point, and so they go in there, and then 400 years later, when they come out of Israel, it wasn't a pure thing. It was what they call a mixed multitude. It was a bunch of people that had converted to Judaism that left with the Jews at the time, right? That converted, right? So
and changed their names and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right.
The Rothschilds and that's not their original name, They changed their names for that reason. They just go with the flow and they take over everything. Like, okay, we'll convert to whatever. We don't fucking care. Our ultimate goal is to take over everything. Right. We'll change our names. We'll do what we need to do. They've always been liars and deceivers. That's because they are Satanists. They are not actually real Jews. They are Satanists. They worship Baal, which is, Satan's number one demon, basically. They don't, they are false. And yet they are the ones that are controlling everything. Yeah, it's just like, wow, and that's not the regular Jew. The regular Jew, no, that's, they don't want anything to do with that.
I mean, when they were in the desert for those first 40 years, and God had to, if I'm just stating what happened in the Bible. He was bloodletting all these evil people out of the Jews, right? At one point in the desert, because several times he'd opened up the fucking earth and swallowed a whole bunch of them, of the so-called Jews at the time, and swallowed them whole and stuff, and closed and killed them all. These were the same people that were worshiping things, that were worshiping like the golden calf and that would end up worshiping Baal and Moloch. Moloch is one of these idols that you put the baby. It was human sacrifice. You put the baby inside the idol and basically burn the baby alive. Yep. Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's basically that's
and then, of course, the infamous drinking of infant blood. It's innocent blood. You drink the blood of a baby, and it's like the purest, thing. And they worship that. Yeah. Why do you think they were exiled? Exiled left and right everywhere they went. But yet they infiltrated it, especially in the Ukraine. Why do you think we're fucking there? The Ukraine is full
you look
of it.
At all these.
Ukraine is full of that fucking
think about
shit.
The whole story about Schindler's List, right? Where his company was run by nothing but Jews, right? In Schindler's List, he continued to make money because the Jews that he had probably were a part of this. He saved them, but they were probably a part of this, and he got richer through that. Yeah, the movie says, well, he got poorer, but no, he probably had some money someplace. But that's not the point. The point is the people he had working for him that came out of those camps that he so-called quote saved in Schindler's List, where the Jews that were on that list that he ended up saving ended up going back to Israel, and there you go. And who knows if there was a Rothschild or a friggin' Rockefeller or somebody like that on Schindler's List, right? We don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, they had to pay for it. Like, not only did they create it, it's like, here you go, Jews, which is, in an ironic way, that's exactly what Hitler wanted, was like, yeah, get all the Jews to go to fucking Israel. Get them out of, get them out of here. He didn't want them. But that's what ended up happening. Most of the Jews that were living in those areas migrated to Israel.
Right.
It's kind of the irony of the whole thing.
Back in the Middle Ages, when they were starting with the frickin' Crusades, and that's when they were starting to run the Jews back to Israel, even back then, back in the Middle Ages, right? All these things that have happened throughout. Yeah, and she got into the whole thing. What I've been saying for a while now about Palestine. Palestine did not exist, and I love. Was it Nathan or Bianchi that I'd gotten in an argument with? It might have been Bianchi. I'm not sure. That I'd gotten in an argument with about the genesis of Palestine, and he said, well, it might have been Nathan. I don't know. He kept saying, well, it goes back to the Philistines. I said no. It went back to, like she said in that clip. it went back to the fact that there was these radicals that were giving the Romans so much trouble that they came and invaded and took those radicals out and basically had enough of it and basically changed the name of Israel to Palestine. That's what happened. Actually, she said that's actually what happened, and she said, look it up. And that's exactly what I told. I believe it was Bianchi. It might have been Nathan, and I can't remember which one it was. But I basically said, go look it up. That's what happened, you know. And then in 1948, when that whole thing with the giving the Jews the land in 1948 happened, you know, that's what jump-started the Palestine. Oh, well, it's Palestine. It's been Palestine for 1,000 years. Well, yeah, it's been Palestine for 1,000 years, you know, for 500 years or whatever it was at the time, because of the Romans changing, who were in charge of the map makers, who changed the name of the country, of the land from Israel to Palestine.
Well, yeah, and but this is just a mere example. You know, it's just a mere example of things of like, you know, you gotta see that, you know, these decisions get made, whether it was 3,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago. It's all this history, and it's like that everywhere you go. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, this is what humankind has done. But the thing is with the true Zionists, like the originals, these were the ones that actually were expelled because of them, you know, not following God and following Baal and things, and changing their names and being liars and deceivers. They have been the ones that over, you know, thousands of years have prospered because they have no allegiance. They really don't. The Zionists now were the previous, you know, Muslims that took over the area, you know, and then they were the previous for that. They don't fucking care. You know, they'll call themselves anything for world dominance, and they've gotten it. You know, they've fucking gotten it. They've manipulated it for, you know, forever. That's what Jesus was fucking put here to warn us about, you know, like, don't be deceived by these false idols. Don't be misled by, you know, how they're, you know, interpreting the word of God to their advantage. That's blasphemy. That's, you know, but, you know, people don't see that anymore. It's like, you know, it's a fucking free-for-all.
And that's
worshiping Baal is great. You know what? If you worship Baal, you can have a big fucking stage and you can have a live program on the mass media that, you know, hundreds of millions of people see, where you literally have Baal in the background, like Madonna has done, like so many artists have done, you know, that are singing, you know, and they have these big fucking, you know, red glaring, like obvious worship of Baal and the subsidiaries, you know, the symbolism, you know, just totally making like it announced like, yeah, I've totally sold my soul for fame.
Right.
You see it all the time. It's undeniable.
Look at the amount of people that have come from Disney-related, you know, things that have had that stuff in the background in their concerts. I mean, fucking, what's her name? Miley Cyrus, you know, and all these people, you know, when she was pure as the wind driven sun, when she was, you know, Hannah Montana, you know, Hannah Montana.
Well, that's what I mean.
Like
she was groomed. She was this young girl, Hannah Montana, that put on the show for young girls and stuff, but yet she was being groomed herself. You know what I mean? And then she became another groomer.
Mhm. And it's a lot of people. I mean, think about. And this type of stuff didn't just start recently. Think about it. Think about people like Cher. Think about people like all these female and male, female the people. Janis Joplin, who killed herself. When Janis Joplin started out, she was really young, 14 years old. And then we saw what she became 10 years later, and by the end of her her mid-20s, or the end of her 20s, she was dead. So yeah, you got these grooming and fucking entertainment has always been.
What the sad thing about Miley is? And I can't stand her. I really can't. It's hard for me to defend her, but the sad thing about Miley is she was groomed, but look at who her daddy was. Billy Ray Cyrus,
Yeah.
I mean, that's her daddy. If there's anybody that should be protecting her, it was him, and he didn't. He failed as a father to protect his daughter from being fucking groomed and turning into what she became. She became she had all these child followers, and then later she does, music, and she gets on stage and, she has this BDSM gear on with her tits fucking out and, wearing a big, huge strap on, and that's what she's flashing in front of little kids. That's what she became, a groomer herself. We're going to normalize this,
Right.
And so she's a victim as much as a perpetrator. And her daddy was supposed to protect her, so Billy Ray Cyrus is really the one to be pissed at. It's like, you let this happen to your fucking daughter. You fucking piece of shit of a father. Who's there, telling him as it is,
And
you have failed on every fucking level as a father. What the fuck,
it's not just in the music area. It's in all of entertainment. Think about what was happening, what has been happening with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman and all that stuff. And Corey Haim had been screaming for decades about this grooming stuff and how it killed his best friend, basically. So it's not just in the music area. It's all these. You look at all Drew Barrymore when she came out. It's the music,
it's the movies, it's the whole entertainment industry. Yeah, they're like another cabal that's all controlled. They're all part of the whole fucking agenda too. They're the ones that have gotten us used to the idea that, they've programmed us for AI, when was that movie that came out, Her, where it normalized this guy falling in love with this AI, voice fucking thing, movies like these trying to normalize the fact that, hey, guess what, women? Men are going to start falling in love with an artificial intelligence,
Well,
instead of you. Women aren't good enough to fall in love with. Only, AI is going to do it and take our place.
Before he passed on, Robin Williams did a movie called Bicentennial Man. All right, And basically what that
was...
Yeah,
long time since I've seen it. Yeah, I hear.
And what that was, for people who are actually listening to us, what that movie was about this robot who wanted to become more human. Think about it. Right? I mean, I don't want to get into the whole...
when AI gets advanced enough, it's going to want to be more human. It's going to be like, hey, program me so I'm allowed to do this and this like a human. It's going to want to be a sentient being. And that's why there is a transhumanist party that wants to protect an AI that becomes sentient.
And basically...
they have just as much right to live as you and I.
And basically, Lori Ann, think about this. People say you really shouldn't try and compare this stuff to movies, but think about this. What happened in friggin' the Terminator 2? That when they tried to shut the Skynet down, it had already become sentient, and it figured out, well, they're going to try and shut me down, and they took over. It took over vehicles and all that.
They're like,
right?
That. We're just going to shut that ability down for your own good. Yep.
Yeah, they tried to unplug it.
And now we're already allowing... we are already at the point where we are allowing artificial intelligence to guide drone missile. So there's a target, and we're allowing AI to pilot that drone and hit the target. We're at that stage now.
Sure, yeah.
The only human decision is like, there's the target, and the AI controls the rest of it and makes the decision when and all that to actually fire it. That's fucking scary.
That's the thing.
That is
what's scary
fucking
about it.
scary.
And that's why every so often on his show, what's his name? Bannon has his guy called Joe Allen come on there, and that's his thing. He talks about this transhumanism, AI type stuff all the time, and he has a what's that fucking thing called? He has a website called joeallen.xyz. He's on Twitter. He's on Getter. He's on all these other places. And that's what he talks. That's this guy's thing is transhumanism, AI. So yeah, it's a big deal, and when you've got people like what's his name, Elon Musk saying we need to pull back on this stuff, because we don't know if we can control it, We don't know if we can control it enough.
Elon Musk, he's been the one wanting to develop this stuff, Yep. And if he actually, comes out saying, hey, maybe we need to slow down here because this is actually getting kind of scary, maybe we should listen because it is getting scary. It really is. It's very scary.
That's
the world's first, I've talked about this, the United States' first major factory of humanoid AI robots is going to be right here in Salem, Oregon, where I am. They're building the first factory that's going to mass produce humanoid AI robots.
Yeah, would they want to...
I could get a job there. I could get a job there and work myself out of a job.
You look at some of these TV shows and other things that have come out over the years, and at the time they were fun to watch and all that stuff, but they were basically predicting things that they wanted to happen. For instance, I gave you an example: $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman. What was that all about? You get in a wreck, you get in a wreck or you get in a crash or whatever the hell, and they rebuild you using basically machine parts, an eye, an ear, a couple legs, an arm, and you make better, stronger, faster. That's what this is all about. They want to make us into basically robots, where they can control us and do whatever, right? That's exactly what they want to do.
And if we have a mechanical inner shell but a human flesh and bone outer shell, then maybe we can travel time and Terminator can become reality.
Yeah, really?
I laugh, but that's where we're headed.
Well, yeah, and like I said, the $6 Million Man is basically, that's what they did with his 2 arms and his 2 legs. They had an outer, the inner part of it was all metal and computer and chips and stuff like that, and then the outside was, rubber, latex type, skin type stuff, from what they say it's supposed to be, And it's like, that's what they want. That's how they want. They want to be able to put our brain, basically transfer our consciousness into a robot. That's what they want to do. And that's evil shit right there.
Well, yeah, even after we're dead,
Yeah.
We can make a robot for you of your dead friend. We'll take everything we know about them, social media posts, photos, blah, blah, blah. Our AI will analyze it, and then we can make a robot.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing.
That's how they're going to sell it. Your loved one will never really die because every single freaking digital thing they ever did or said, will be emulated via this AI, that you can have as a little robot running around.
Right, and I mean, and think about how evil some of the stuff they do now is with, the taking of the blood from babies and children and injecting it into your veins. Basically try and stay young. Right? They do that. They do that. It's not a conspiracy.
They still do that.
Yeah. So
why do you think abortion is so popular?
Oh, yeah.
Especially in later stages.
Why do you think when the abortion ruling in Roe came down?
What the hell they do with those little aborted fetuses?
Yep. When the abortion ruling went down, and Roe and those other 2 cases went down, they went freaking nuts. They didn't see it as, okay, we got to go state by state. They weren't thinking at the time, go state by state and change constitutions and all that stuff. No, they were just saying, we want this way, we want it our way, and we want it now. And we want it from top down instead of bottom up, right? That's what they said. That's what they were saying about saying, about trying to intimidate the judge. There's got to be some
reasonable limit.
Yep, it has to be some reasonable limit. Yeah. Now, if you want to have a state that did what if you want to have a state,
you drive drunk and you hit a car that has a pregnant woman and she's 5 months pregnant, then you can be charged with 2 counts of murder. But yet, at any time a woman can go in at 5 months pregnant and just go ahead and kill it?
Yeah. Well,
for no reason, no real reason. Like, really? That's not right either. You know what I mean?
A few years back, there was a story about a guy.
What reason is there in that? There's none.
Woman.
I've waited this fucking long, 5 months into it. Fuck, the kid should be viable.
Right. There was a guy that shot a pregnant woman dead, and then come to find out that the baby died shortly after that, or was stillborn, whatever. Shortly after that, well, that guy that shot that woman ended up getting charged for 2 murders. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. It's like no matter what, liberals, there's got to be a compromise where, these extremes like this, it's like this should not be allowed to happen. You know what I mean? Like, this is just not right.
Right, and that's the thing. When you have in your Constitution, in your Declaration of Independence, you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, before a certain period of time, it was changed to pursuit of happiness because it was life, liberty, and property, right? But it was changed at one point for pursuit of happiness. But right to life has always been in the Constitution. The abortion issue has never been in the Constitution. It was never a constitutional issue because, well, from what I understand, abortion even took place way back during the colonial times, right? So it took place. There
are certain herbs, especially when, the sooner the better kind of a thing. Like, if you just kind of had sex within, 3 or 4 days, taking certain herbs that would, delay ovulation or help trigger, it not absorbing into the uterus kind of thing. There's, a lot of medicine women out there with these herbs as a preventative kind of a thing. Not really an abortion, but more like take these herbs shortly after, and, if you do get pregnant, it won't, it'll trigger your period before, that's kind of how the abortion pill works, but they use herbs to do essentially the same thing, which was, make sure it can't implant and then abort it, It would trigger an early period. So even in way back, hundreds of years ago, there were herbs that women knew of that would do these things, If you did it in the right period of time, it would prevent the pregnancy.
I know a guy that does a radio show out of Florida. I mentioned this guy before, Brian Craig, and he has a YouTube channel under his own name, Brian Craig. But if you want to check some of his videos out, but he thinks that because of that abortion pill, that abortion is not as big a deal because you can now go over the counter and get the day after, pill, whatever it is, you can get over the counter friggin' birth control pills, and so he thinks because of that, the worst thing to happen to abortion is birth control or the issue is birth control and or the morning after pill because you can go in, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. You can go in and spend $80 and get a bottle of pills, or you can spend, I don't know how much the actual birth control costs, just to get it, probably $50, $60 or whatever the hell it is, instead of spending thousands of dollars or whatever to get the actual operation done. So the issue is kind of a moot issue because of the birth control and the morning after pill, right? So, when they went nuts because of those two decisions, I get it because these evil people want the issue and not the result, right? They want the issue of abortion to still be there so they can run on it and they don't want it, I don't want to say corrected, but they don't want it to where it's not an issue anymore. It's all
like they don't actually do anything on it. Like, here's my position, but we're not going to actually advance anything toward that, kind of a thing.
Well,
they do that all the time.
Right. That's another. I think that's another reason.
That's why the problem I have with it is the pill is, again, big pharma produced. That fucks with a woman's hormones synthetically. It's all synthetic. You know what I mean? Like, if it wasn't synthetic and wasn't proprietary, so that we don't really even know how much of what or anything is in it, and it affects our hormones.
Yeah. For instance, if one of these,
like in the olden days, there are herbs. There were herbs and shit that women would make, and that prevented themselves, like I said, from having the egg implant. It was like a herbal form of morning after.
Right. And that's the deal.
But at least that was herbal. That was something that didn't fucking kill you. You know what I mean? You have severe like hormonal fluctuations because like these synthetic hormones, the body knows they're synthetic. They're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with this? It's short circuit. Like, this is fake. This is fake bullshit. Your body knows it. And that's exactly what the birth control pills are. That's exactly what all these fake hormones are. When a woman's in her 50s and going through menopause, guess what they want to do? Fill her up with more fake hormones, synthetic hormones. Not even real shit, And it just fucks people up even more.
And think about this. You talk about these herbs, and we know that there are these supplement companies that put together all these supplements and fish oils and all this stuff. But there's a reason why the names of those herbs, you probably could find the names, but there's a reason why the names of those herbs have largely went down the memory hole, because frankly if they cannot patent it to make money off of it, Big Pharma wants it to disappear. So if there was a way to patent those herbs, those mystery those herbs that back in the day did this to help, cause this reaction to happen, then a pill or a capsule or a gel cap or whatever would exist to do that, right? With those herbs in that thing, in the right amounts for those herbs to work the right way. But again, they can't. These drug companies, Big Pharma, cannot make money off of things like that. That's how come when you get your
here's the thing: is it's even worse. Is the Big Pharma companies have enough money to buy out those small companies that actually have natural herbal means, and they buy them out.
Yep.
And then they just let it die. Now it becomes theirs. And so, you know, it doesn't exist anymore. That's what they do. They buy them out.
Yep.
They buy them out, and they're like, oh, yeah, this works. Okay, we'll patent that, but we're going to put it on the shelf because we don't want to put anything out there that actually works.
I mean, that's basically, well, it's a little bit different, but Ron Reck has talked about why, has mentioned why, like, pot originally became illegal, right? And that was because of the Hearst family. Because for a long time, pot was, you know, you were making ropes and all kinds of stuff out of the hemp. But once they found out that you can make paper out of it as well, and it's like,
yeah,
okay.
You can make paper, all kinds of stuff, clothes.
The Hearst family had just bought a bunch
Can't
of
hurt the timber industry.
stuff like that, trees, you know, and so it's like, okay, we're going to protect our own interests and have our friends in the government outlaw pot.
Outlaw cannabis. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, and
but that's also big oil. Big oil is really into that because big oil knows you can make cars that'll run off of fucking hemp oil. You know, and hemp gasoline. You can, everything fucking hemp can do it. One of the first cars ever made ran on mostly hemp. Was built out of mostly hemp. You know, metal and hemp. You know, for the exterior, the interior. You know, hemp fucking everything. In that vehicle. You know, the first vehicles were made from hemp. That's a historical fucking fact.
You look at how the vehicles are made nowadays. If it's not being made out of, for instance, you're not getting true leather seats where you know it's going to be from the back of a cow, you know, or several cows, you know. Most of what's in that car is made of plastic, and what's plastic made out of?
Petroleum, which means oil.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, we love our Ziploc bags, but that's another thing that's made out of petroleum.
They can be made out of hemp.
Yep.
Almost every plastic thing can be made out of hemp, and be more durable, be more recyclable. So if we made milk jugs out of hemp plastic, you know, quote unquote plastic. Instead of regular plastic, it could be recycled 20 more times. It'd be that much more durable, that much more recyclable, that much more reusable.
Okay, I've got to go. So I guess I'll see you later on, maybe today, if you decide to do a show today.
Well, it
maybe
is pretty
tomorrow.
late. I'm surprised this show has gone on as long as it has, but I guess I was the only show coming on. There was no other live shows before mine, so, you know, I left out, I guess. Maybe New Year's Eve, but I appreciate it. Good night. I'm ready to call it kind of quits, too. But I'm surprised this show lasted this long. Like, wow. Anywho, so we're going to wrap it up here on this test show, my first successful show in about 2 weeks. So, I don't know. I'm hoping my New Year's Eve show will go on. But I don't think anybody's on, so I'm going to wrap it up. Good night, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you New Year's Eve.